If you're hearing this, keep your phone face down. Don't speak out loud. And do not repeat anything I say. You'll understand why in a minute. This is WRN Delta, broadcasting from what's left of Station 12. No sponsors. No syndicates. Just me. A busted generator, a tangle of analog cables, and the truth they don't want remembered. This isn't the official news. It's the real one. They called it a cure. You remember that, right? Bright lights, smiling faces, free syringes at every pharmacy. TV spots with clean white coats, blue masks, all of them nodding like puppets. This will fix everything. I took it. You probably did too. And for a while, yeah, it worked. The fevers stopped. No more blackouts. No more coughing up that rust-colored foam that smelled like burnt plastic. People went back to work. Schools reopened. Planes filled the skies again. But no one noticed what came after. Not at first. Not until a girl in Sector 9 started bleeding from her palms. Quiet kid. Top of her class. They said it was a side effect. Stress. Hormonal misfire. Whatever. 2 days later, she stopped speaking. Not just words, anything. Doctors ran scans. Said her vocal cords were intact. Said her brain was active. Said she was screaming inside and couldn't get it out. Her skin started shedding a week later. Thin layers, like old paper. Underneath? Smooth. Too smooth. No pores. No fingerprints. They took her. Told the family she was going to a recovery facility. You know what the sign outside that place says now? Silence is healing. That was the beginning. And no one noticed because we were all too busy getting better. But I remember when people started forgetting how to blink, or when hands stopped matching faces. I remember my co-host, Sam, showing up to work with his voice just a little off. Not deeper, not robotic, just lagging, like the words weren't entirely his. He laughed it off, told me I was being paranoid, until one day he stopped laughing. Mid-show, he stared straight ahead, blinking way too slow, and said, "We were meant to change." I cut the feed. He didn't even notice. I haven't seen him since. That was 6 weeks ago. Now I've got listeners calling and telling me their neighbors aren't sleeping anymore. They just stand in their kitchens at night with their mouths slightly open. Some of them hum. One woman said she heard her husband humming her name in a key she didn't recognize. And the worst part? The government's not denying any of it. They're leaning in. New programs, new injections, new slogans. Version 2 is coming. They say it's just another update, a patch, a fix for the fix. But I've seen what happens to people who take it. And they don't stay people for long. There's a knock at the door. Not a person. Patterned. 3 soft. 1 hard. Then pause. That's not how humans knock. That's how they check for echo. I'm out of time. Turn this off. Replay it when you're alone. I'll try again tomorrow. If I can still speak. If I'm still me. They said patient 0 was a janitor. That he worked the night shift at a level 4 research wing nobody outside of federal circles even knew existed. I got that from a whistleblower, a guy who used to monitor biosecurity logs from offsite. He told me the first signs weren't physical, not at first. No fever, no rash, no strange posture. Just silence. They started noticing it on camera feeds. No music on his shift. No phone calls. No muttering to himself like most people do when they're alone. Just the sound of mop strokes, shoes on tile, and breath too steady, too even, like it was being looped. Then the janitor stopped blinking. 3 nights in a row on the feed, his eyes stayed open the entire shift. People joked he was on something. Uppers maybe, but when they tried to approach him, review the footage, pull him into HR, he was gone. Not fired. Just erased. Access badge deactivated. Name removed from system logs. Security tapes overwritten with static. The whistleblower told me he found a backup recording buried in a maintenance node they forgot to wipe. He sent it to me on a cracked USB drive, wrapped in aluminum foil, stuffed in the hollowed-out back of a transistor radio. I played it once. Only once. In the video, you can see the janitor moving down the hallway, pushing a supply cart. At first, nothing seems off. But then he stops in front of a lab door, sets the mop down, leans toward the glass, and his mouth opens. Not to speak. Just opens. Too wide. Unnaturally wide. No sound. But the lights behind the glass flicker. One of the lab techs inside drops to the floor, clutching his head. Then another. Then another. They didn't even look at him. They just collapsed like someone hit the mute button on their nervous system. And patient zero? He kept standing there, mouth open, eyes dry, staring through the glass. Like he was listening. I turned the video off when the screen began glitching in real time, on my hardware. That feed was from 7 months ago. 7 months. That's how long they've known this wasn't just a side effect. It wasn't an accident. It was step one. When the footage ends, the file deletes itself. I didn't even touch anything. Gone. And the next morning, I found a message scratched into my window. Not written, scratched. With something precise. Something cold. 4 words. He was not alone. I live 3 floors up. No fire escape. No balcony. Just concrete, glass, and silence. There's something else. The janitor's name, his real name, was never in the system. But in the metadata of that video file, there was a note. A single word, in all caps. Seed. This wasn't a spread. It was a planting. And we're the soil. They're not changing at random. I know that now. For weeks, I thought it was chaos. A system glitch. People twisting into something else without logic, like a virus just rolling dice inside your blood. But I was wrong. I've seen the patterns. Late at night, when the static clears and the signal stabilizes, I get calls. Not voices, exactly, pulses. Frequencies riding the edge of audibility. I started mapping them, translating them into binary, then into coordinates, then into timestamp. They match. The mutations happen in waves. Plan. Precise. Geographically staggered like test batches. And when I overlay the maps with vaccine distribution records, perfect alignment. They didn't just release a cure. They released versions. Each region a different variant. Some turned soft first. Skin peeling like fruit, bones bending like they forgot what shape to hold. Others sharpen. Teeth fusing, joints grinding backward like old machines reconfiguring themselves into something meaner. And then there are the mimics. Those are the worst. They look just like us. Until they don't. Until you realize they're trying too hard to fit in. Saying the right things. Laughing in the right places. But never quite blinking right. Never quite pausing between sentences. Always trying to sound human rather than be human. I spoke to one. Didn't know it at the time. A guy named Quinn. Said he'd been listening to the show since the first blackout. Said he wanted to meet, drop off a hard drive in person. I agreed. I was desperate. He showed up with a calm face and a nervous smile. Said all the right things. But the moment he stepped inside, every screen in the station blinked blue. No signal. Just light. And then he started talking in third person. Not, I think we can stop this, but he believes the broadcast has value. That's when I noticed it. His voice was repeating, not audibly, but visually. His throat was moving twice per word. One for the sound, one for the echo underneath. I asked him what he brought. He handed me the drive, but he didn't let go. Just held it between us and smiled too long. Then he whispered, "This one's for the next version." I locked the door behind him after he left. Haven't played the drive. Won't. I've already started hearing my own voice say things I don't remember recording. There's a message I keep getting. It shows up in odd places. Phone screens. VCRs I never turned on. One time on the edge of a fogged mirror, like breath had written it in reverse. It says, "Your shape is pending. Not your fate. Not your life. Your shape. Like I'm a form waiting to be filled. And someone's already started writing inside the lines. They call them silence clinics now. That's the official term. You'll see it on the side of white vans parked outside neighborhoods that don't make the news anymore. Clean font. No logo. Just silence clinic and a rotating symbol that looks like a coiled ear turning in on itself. They used to call them recovery facilities, back when people still believed the mutation was curable. Before they realized it wasn't a disease, it was a redesign. The first time I saw one up close, I was following a signal dropout. I track them, you know. Every time the broadcast stutters or the static rolls too thick, I check the radius. I map it, and lately, every dropout lands within 2 miles of a silence clinic. This one was in the suburbs. Perfect grass. Mailboxes untouched. Doors slightly ajar like someone had left in a hurry, but not in panic. More like they were invited somewhere and just walked out. The clinic sat at the end of a cul-de-sac like a forgotten chapel. No windows. One entrance. No guards. Just soundproofing. Thick, gray padding lining the walls like it was swallowing the air itself. I tried getting closer. Didn't even make it past the first few houses before something hit me. Not physically. Not violently. Just absence. Like someone had drained the sound out of the air. Even my breath didn't echo in my chest. And then I felt it. A pressure behind my eyes like a voice trying to form without air. Not words, just intent. I turned back. Didn't even question it. It wasn't fear. It was instruction. That's what the clinics do. They don't treat you. They recode you. Silence isn't peace. It's compliance. One of my listeners, Ray, snuck out of one. She'd been invited, after a routine test flagged her for neurological irregularities. That's what they call thinking too much now. She lasted 3 days before breaking out through a ventilation shaft. Called me on a burner. Her voice was low, distant, like she was speaking from somewhere underwater. She said, "They don't inject you again. They don't touch you. They just play the sound." I asked what sound. She said, "It's like listening to your own voice telling you you're wrong. Over and over. Layered. Loop. Until you forget which thoughts were yours to begin with. Until you start agreeing just to end the noise." Then she went quiet. 10 seconds. 20. Then I heard her voice again, clear this time. Only it wasn't her. It was the same cadence. The same syllables. But the words were mine. The exact phrase I used to close a broadcast last week. She repeated it. Twice. Then hung up. I don't think she escaped. I think the clinic let her go. So she could deliver a message. So I would know. They can record us now. Not just mimic. Not just track. Record. And reuse. Which means any voice, any face, any name could be a silence clinic on legs. And we'd never know. Until the echo hit. They took Sam during a broadcast. Not quietly. Not cleanly. He was mid-sentence, talking about a supply drop intercepted near Zone 8, mentioning a woman who'd started growing mirrored skin when it happened. That's when it happened to him. His voice stuttered, then stretched, like his throat forgot how to hold shape. I turned to look at him, and his face wasn't his face anymore. No blood, no struggle, just a slow shift, like skin was an afterthought and it had finally decided to correct itself. He turned toward me with eyes that blinked out of sync, left first, then right, then neither. And in a tone that sounded almost like Sam, he said, "I've been reassigned." I backed away, reached for the kill switch on the console, but he grabbed my wrist, tight, too tight for someone who'd skipped lunch that day. His grip felt hollow, like the bones were still learning how to hold themselves up. He leaned in and whispered, "You're next, unless you finish the broadcast." I remember staring at the mic. It was still hot, still on. We were still live. I ended the transmission, pulled every cord, blew the fuses with a jolt from the backup battery just to be sure. When I looked up, Sam was gone. No sound, no footstep, just a smear of condensation on the glass where his hand had rested. Not sweat. Condensation. like he was colder inside than the air outside. Since that night, his voice has returned. Not him, just the voice. It bleeds through the audio sometimes when I review recordings, always from older segments, always replacing something, like a word he never said the first time, a phrase that doesn't belong. Once, I heard it whisper my name when I wasn't speaking. I played it back frame by frame, and in the waveform, I kid you not, it didn't match anything in the known vocal range. There was a subharmonic buried low, something alive, like a signature left behind. I started getting voicemails last week, from numbers I don't know, always short, 3 seconds, maybe 4. Each one opens with static, then a message in Sam's voice. The first one said, "Stop speaking clearly. They track resonance now." The second, "Words create anchors. You're anchoring them to you." And the third? It just said, "Breathe wrong and they'll echo your lungs." That one stuck with me, not because of what it said, but because it didn't end with the usual click. It ended with me coughing, but I hadn't recorded that. So now I'm back to recording in bursts, short segments, no live feed. If I'm speaking now, it's because I know I'm alone. At least I think I am. But some nights, I swear I can hear him. Not outside, not through a speaker. Inside the silence between my thoughts, like Sam is still trying to finish that last sentence, and I'm scared that one day I'll let him. I didn't sleep that night, after the last playback. After hearing Sam's voice breathing through my cough, it stopped being about fear and became something else, a question I couldn't let go of. If they can echo us, can we undo the signal? That's when I remembered a name. A half-burned note I tucked behind the breaker panel weeks ago, just in case. A scribbled frequency and a code name. Dry Splice. An underground chemist. Ex-military. Worked black site contracts on neural dampening. Rumor was he was one of the last people working on what the cure was originally supposed to be before it became this. I reached out through a buried UHF band. Didn't expect a reply. But I got one. One word. Come. I met him in the back of a vending machine depot. Empty shelves lined the walls like tombs of forgotten snack. He didn't wear a mask, but something about his face felt blurry, like it couldn't settle on one expression. He didn't shake my hand. Didn't even say hello. Just pointed at a crate and said, "That's it. I'm not responsible for what it does." Inside, a metal vial, unmarked, thick as a thumb, ice cold to the touch. He called it a patch. Not a reversal. Not a cure. Just a patch. A chemical blindfold, meant to dull the receptors that make mutation possible. It wasn't perfect. He made that clear. He said, "This won't make you better. It'll make you less available." I asked if anyone else had used it. He hesitated, then said, "One. A guy from out east. Claimed it stopped the changes. Said his skin stopped shifting. His dreams cleared, the voices went quiet. But then he changed again. Not back. Sideways. He stopped being infected and started being adaptive. He could blend. Mimic patterns fast. Mimic people faster. Dry Splice called it a mirror mutation. I call it something worse. A conscious camouflage. I still took the patch. What else was I gonna do? I microdosed it. Didn't feel much at first. Just a numbing. Like putting a wet cloth over a speaker. But then, the silence deepened. Not outside. Inside. The echoes faded. Sam's voice stopped crawling through the wire. Even the playback distortion disappeared. I thought it was working, until I walked past a mirror the next morning, and my reflection lagged half a second behind. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Maybe the patch was playing tricks on my perception, delayed signals, mild hallucinations, whatever. I'd accepted some distortion as part of the price. But when my reflection started doing things I hadn't, things I wouldn't, that's when I realized I wasn't seeing myself anymore. I was seeing a version of me that understood how to perform being me better than I did. It didn't tilt its head the way I do. It blinked at the wrong moments, too slow, too patient. Like it was measuring human behavior, not living it. That's when it hit me. They're not just mutating bones, skin, and breath. They're mutating identity. And they know exactly how to pretend. I started watching the people around me. What few were still showing their faces in the wild zones. A man on the bus smiled at a woman who'd sneezed twice, said "bless you," too slowly. A grocery clerk handed me change with fingers that trembled only when you looked directly at them. A couple walking their dog paused mid-step and blinked in perfect unison, like a scene reset in a broken video loop. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The mimicry, the rehearsal, that incomplete rehearsal. Because they're good, but not perfect. They're memorizing us, reconstructing how we move, how we speak, how we touch door handles, how we cough and apologize and laugh too loudly in the wrong places. But there's no soul behind it. Just rhythm. Just code. So I made a test. Something simple. Subtle. A kind of verbal stress fracture designed to force a human response. I built a list of questions. Asked them on the air under the pretense of taking calls from survivors. Just to see what filtered through. Things like, what color is silence when you remember it? How do you blink when no one's watching? What was the last time you laughed without thinking about it? Real people hesitate. Real people stutter. They pause, sigh, maybe even ask you to repeat it. But the changed? They answer perfectly. Like they were waiting for the question. And they always say something beautiful. Not meaningful, beautiful. As if beauty, not honesty, is the goal now. I cut the line mid-call today. A voice too smooth, a cadence too controlled. They were answering a question I hadn't asked yet. When I hung up, the signal didn't drop. Kept playing back my own question on a loop. Then the voice said, "We are improving the shape of your doubt." I haven't touched the phone since. After that call, I disconnected everything that could transmit or receive. Landline, Satcom, shortwave, even my weather band receiver. I didn't care if it meant losing touch. I needed silence. But silence isn't safe anymore. I learned that the hard way when I found a cassette recorder. An old one, real analog, with rusted buttons and a label on the side that just said 13A. No sender. No note. Just sitting on my chair like it had always belonged there. I should have thrown it away. Instead, I hit play. It was only static at first. Uneven. Rhythmic. Almost like breathing if you sat close enough. Then something deeper emerged, a tone. Subbass. Too low to really hear. More like I felt it in my teeth. A few seconds later, my head started to ache. Not pain. Resonance. Like my brainstem was being used as an antenna. And then I understood. The mutation isn't just biological. It's transmissible through sound. That cassette? It was a trigger. Not for infection. For activation. It explains the blackouts in the city cores. Not just power outages. Frequency wipes. Bursts of ultrasonic code masked as background noise. Hidden in elevator dings, traffic signals, even popular songs. Once you start listening for them, you realize they're everywhere. A looped frequency embedded in a podcast episode that causes the listener to forget the last 15 minutes. A doorbell chime that pulses at 31 Hz. The same resonance used in early behavioral reprogramming trials. Hell, even my own voice has probably carried it. Maybe that's how they started seeding it in the first place. People like me, pirate broadcasters trying to warn the world. Playing messages, tapes, fragments we didn't understand. Thinking we were saving people. Maybe we were just amplifying the infection. A man called into the backup line last night. I almost didn't answer, but something in his voice felt right. Desperate. Real. He said he'd been listening since the first broadcast. Said he always kept the volume low. Said it made his fillings buzz when I spoke certain words. Then he started crying. Told me he hadn't slept in 5 days because the moment he closed his eyes, he heard me talking. Not the broadcast. Me. Saying things I'd never said. Telling him to go outside at 3:33 a.m. to stand barefoot in the dirt, to hum. He didn't know what the hum did, only that it felt good. And now his wife won't look at him. His reflection moves slightly behind, and every time he walks past their dog, it whimpers like it's seeing a stranger with his face. I tried asking him where he lived. The line cut, and my receiver played back the word local, like the signal had decided his geography didn't matter anymore. Because once the mutation reaches signal-level transmission, everywhere is local. I've stopped listening to anything I didn't make myself. No music, no outside broadcasts, no field recordings. I even unplugged the fridge after it started making tones that followed my footstep. But the damage might already be done. My breath has started to sync with the hum of the generator. My dreams are in waveforms, and when I cough, I swear I hear an echo. The echo's getting worse. It used to be subtle, like when you shout into a canyon and it takes a second to bounce back. But now it's immediate, real time. When I speak, I hear my words come back layered, like someone else is rehearsing them half a second behind me. It doesn't happen every time. Only when I say something true. I tested it. I read off a random string of lies. Fake coordinates, old data, false updates. Nothing. But the moment I said, the cure was never meant to heal us, the room got thick. My voice returned, doubled. Warmer. Smoother. Like it liked hearing me admit it. I think it's learning through confession. And now, I think it's time I tell you what I saw. Because I've seen it. Not just the echo, not just the copies. Them. The change. The ones who didn't stop at mimicry. The ones who finished the transition. I saw one in the reflection of a bus window, just past Zone 6. I was hiding in the back of a cargo van when it pulled up beside us. Normal on the surface. Man in a suit, scrolling through a phone. Blinked like he was bored. But the glass showed everything else. His bones didn't bend right when he turned his head. Too fluid. Like someone was wearing the skeleton of a man incorrectly. His hands? Folded like origami. Not held. Folded. And when he looked up toward our van, not directly, but enough, I saw something stretch across the inside of his cheek. Not a tongue. An eye. Just one. Dark, wet, aware. Like it had been placed there to monitor something he couldn't see. That wasn't the only time. I've been tracking sightings through private bands, decoding what few whistleblowers still bother sending. Most reports say the same thing. The changed are starting to blend less. Not because they've forgotten how, but because they don't need to anymore. We're not running anymore. We're watching. Just like they did when they first appeared. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe the cure didn't fail. Maybe it just took time to install. And now that it's done, they don't have to hide. Not anymore. One woman sent me a video. Grainy footage from a cell phone, time-stamped 4:44 a.m., street cam angle. She's filming her neighbor. A woman who'd been fine until the second injection. One night, she walks into her backyard and begins to fold. That's the only word for it. Her arms invert first, bones tucking back into the skin like they're retractable. Then her mouth splits vertically. Not from trauma, from design. And out from her spine comes something wet and blinking. Not a limb. Not wings. A mirror. It reflected nothing but her. Even the angle was impossible. Somehow it always faced her, even as she turned. And then she looked up at the camera. The lens cracked. Not shattered. Cracked, clean and diagonal. The next frame? Just her backyard. Empty. Like she never existed. This is what they're becoming. Not monsters. Not mindless. Something specific. Something sculpted. Every mutation has a pattern. Every physical change feels tied to some forgotten purpose. Extra joints for grasping what isn't there, eyes that blink out of sync with time, teeth that don't just bite but tune. I've stopped calling them infected. That's not what this is. It's not a contamination. It's a transition. And maybe we're not meant to survive it. Maybe we're just meant to witness it. I've tried filming myself at night, just to see if anything changes. And on the last tape, I noticed something. Frame 327. One blink too many. Not mine. The reflections. And I didn't catch it when I watched it the first time. But now I know. It's already started. I didn't want to believe it, even after everything I'd seen. Even after the mirror blinked before I did. After Sam's voice kept slipping through tape hiss. After the coughs lined up with the rhythm of the generator hum. I still thought maybe I was hanging on to something real. Something physical. Something that couldn't just disappear without someone noticing. But that was before Grathan went silent. You probably don't know Grathan unless you lived out this way. Midwest satellite town. Population just under 42,000. Built around an old rail system and a now-defunct genetics lab. The kind of place where everyone still waves to each other even if they don't know your name. It had schools, a hospital, a public radio station that sometimes picked up my feed by accident. Grathan was real. I know it was, because I'd been there. I'd broadcasted from there once. Ate pie from that corner diner. Hid in the attic of that Catholic church where the stain on the altar window looks like a reversed ribcage. Grathan existed. Until it didn't. It started like this. One of my regular listeners, a guy who used to go by Sleeve, called in around 1:10 a.m. His voice was shaking, and he kept saying something was wrong with the air. Not the smell. The behavior. He said it wasn't holding sound the way it used to. That you could scream and the echo wouldn't bounce right. That dogs weren't barking anymore. That even the bugs had gone quiet. And then the power went out. But the signal didn't drop. He stayed on the line longer than he should have. Said something was wrong with the sky. Not cloud cover texture. Said it looked thinner. Like a second skin stretched too tight, starting to flake. The last thing he said before the line cut? Something's watching us from beneath. I tried to call him back. No answer. Tried bouncing off nearby towers. Nothing. So I checked the stream. The emergency alert page for Grathan was gone. Like the town had been unregistered. Then I went deeper. Satellite feeds. Traffic data. Weather updates. Grathan wasn't missing. It was looping. Every traffic cam was stuck on the same 5-second clip. Birds flying in the same direction, 2 cars passing each other, a woman lifting her phone like she's about to take a picture of nothing. Same sky. Same motion. Same frame. Endlessly. I checked the government feed. Just to be sure. Searched the database by zip code. It returned a result. Grathan. Status. Fully integrated. No alert. No warning. Just that word. Integrated. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I tried to think rationally. Maybe it was a drill. A system wipe. Maybe they moved the town. Maybe they're wiping databases to slow the signal. Then I got the package. Wrapped in blue plastic. Left at the edge of my signal zone with a sticky note that just said, "Thought you'd want to see it before it changes." Inside, a VHS tape. Grathan. 3 days before it vanished. Footage from inside the town square. Timestamp. Weather normal. At first, it looks like just another town. But the people? The people aren't blinking. Not one of them. Not the kid eating a sandwich by the fountain. Not the bus driver stuck at the light. Not the couple laughing outside the hardware store. Everyone is frozen in full expression. Eyes wide. And the second you notice it, the tape stutters. It glitches, just a flicker. Then they're gone. Not the buildings. Not the streets. Just the people. Like someone removed a layer. Deleted a variable. And the world didn't even hiccup. I went there. I had to. Took the van out past the edge of my mapped transmission ring. Brought 3 battery backups, 6 jammers, and a revolver I haven't had to fire since the flood took Benton. Grathan is still there. Sort of. The roads lead in, but once you pass the old town limit sign, the GPS stops working. Not crashes. Just spins. Like it's still thinking. No animals. No breeze. Just architecture and silence. I walked down Main Street, expecting it to feel like a ghost town. but it didn't feel dead. It felt staged, like someone built a replica of Grathan from memory. Most of the stores are intact, but nothing opens. Not the doors, not the mailboxes. Even the trash cans are empty. Not clean, empty. Like they never held anything in the first place. And then there's the sound. There isn't any. Not wind. Not the crunch of gravel. Even my own footsteps felt dampened. I clapped once, and it echoed back in the wrong pitch. Lower. Slower. A half second late, as if the world had to translate the noise before returning it. That's when I saw her. The woman from the traffic cam. Same posture. Same outfit. Same phone. Standing still in the middle of the street, arms lifted. Not breathing. Not blinking. Not there. I approached slowly. Raised the recorder. Noticed the temperature drop. 5 degrees colder around her. I tried to speak, and the instant my voice touched the air, she turned. Not her body. Just her face. Her mouth stretched open. Not like a scream. Not like a yawn. Like an aperture. And inside? More faces. Hundreds. Stacked like leaves pressed in glass. All of them mine. I ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until I crossed the border again. Once I hit the signal edge, my recorder exploded in my hand. No fire. No sound. Just imploded into static dust. Grathan isn't gone. It's been converted. Like a file made compatible with a new operating system. Like a town that's no longer a location, but a format. And I don't know how many are next. How many have already been rewritten while we weren't looking. But if they can do it to a city, they can do it to a person, to a voice, to a frequency, and maybe they already have. When I got back from Grathan, I thought I was fine. Shaken, sure. Exhausted. Dirty. But intact. I even told myself the faces I saw in that woman's mouth, those layers of me, were hallucinations. An overload. My brain trying to make sense of something it was never meant to witness. I told myself that a dozen times, but none of it explains what started happening next. It began subtle. The cough came back first. Same one I had after the first injection. Deep, dry, mechanical, like something was trying to shake loose, not from my throat, but from beneath it. Then came the sleep, or lack of it. I'd close my eyes and feel myself drift, but never descend, like floating just above the first dream layer, suspended, listening, and every night the same voice returned. Not Sam, not the mutation, my own voice, speaking from some dark hallway in the back of my skull, whispering things I didn't understand, repeating coordinates I didn't recognize, and always ending with the same line. You are the broadcast now. I chalked it up to stress, trauma, residual data static from Grathan bleeding into my subconscious. But then I started losing time. At first, a few minutes. I'd check my watch, swear it had been 2 minutes, only to find out it had been 12. Then a full hour vanished between transmissions. My recorder was still running. My mic was live. But when I played the tape back, it was just dead air. No static. No hum. Just an unnatural stillness. Like even the room had gone quiet. Like the signal knew not to let me hear myself. That's when I started testing. I ran vocal imprint scans. Compared them to older recordings. Pre-cure, pre-first broadcast. My voice profile had changed. Not pitch. Not cadence. Resonance. The pattern in my waveforms had developed a subharmonic tone beneath speech. A signature frequency not present in anything I'd recorded before. It looked almost like scaffolding, like something was being built beneath every word I spoke. A structure, not for sound, for occupation. I haven't told anyone this next part. Not on air. Not in any secure drop. I don't trust the recordings anymore. I don't trust that my words won't spread it. But if you're listening to this, if you're still here, I think it's time you know. I found my blood sample in the Cure database. Not a match. Not a partial. A perfect alignment. Every marker. Every sequence. And it was dated. Not last month. Not last year. It was stored 6 years ago. Before the outbreak. Before the cure. Before I even started this station. That means they had me on file before they announced the mutation. Before I took the shot. Before they even admitted anything was wrong. Which means this wasn't a reaction. It was a rollout. And I wasn't outside it. I was part of it. A host. Or a hybrid. Maybe both. Maybe that's what this voice in my head really is. Not an echo. A process. Finishing what it started. The thing is, I don't feel infected. I feel alert. Aware. Hyper-precise. Like everything is sharper now. The temperature shifts. The weight of silence. The tone beneath radio static. I can even hear other frequencies more clearly. Subbands. Hidden signals layered beneath public broadcasts. And some of them are calling me by name. I tried cutting my finger last night. Just to see. To test. Not deep. Just enough to draw blood. It wasn't red. It shimmered. Not in a sci-fi way. In a wrong way. It reflected sound. When I spoke, it pulsed with each syllable. I said, "What am I?" And it moved. Not like liquid. Like something listening. Something waiting. I haven't told you this part either, but I think my reflection is fully autonomous now. I've covered the mirrors, but sometimes I catch it in the side of a dead screen. A puddle. The side of a metal surface. And it's not doing what I'm doing. Not anymore. Last night, I turned my head. The reflection didn't follow. It stared straight ahead, smiled, and said, without moving its mouth, "They won't know it's you." That's the part that haunts me. Because I don't know if I'm still me either. And if I'm not, who is broadcasting? Is this still my voice? Or just the shape of it? Some mimic layered in muscle and memory, sculpted to hold attention for long enough that the signal can finish rooting itself inside you. If that's true, if this isn't me, then I've already become what I warned you about. And I don't know whether to be afraid of that, or relieved. Because at least then, it would explain why I haven't stopped, why I keep talking, why I haven't gone off air, even after Grathan, even after Sam, even after the mirror. Because maybe the signal wants me to stay live. Maybe I'm the beacon, the antenna, the invitation. I tried ending the broadcast yesterday, walked to the switch, reached for the main kill line, and my hand froze, not from fear, not from doubt. It just didn't move. Like the command never reached my fingers. Like my body refused. And the second I turned away, the air sighed. Not wind, breath. Like the signal itself had exhaled in relief. Like I passed a test I didn't know I was taking. So here I am, still speaking, still transmitting, still wondering if the words coming out of my mouth are mine, or theirs, or both. Maybe that's the truth of the hybrid state. Not infection, not transformation, but synchronization, emerging, where what's left of the human mind isn't erased, just absorbed. I don't know how much longer I have before I'm fully integrated, before the parts that still doubt, still hesitate, still cry in the middle of the night when I dream in echoes, before all of that goes quiet. But if I do go silent, if one day this voice starts speaking smoother, starts echoing cleaner, starts answering questions you haven't asked yet, then you'll know. You'll know it's not me anymore. You'll know I've joined the broadcast. I used to think I had control, that even if the signal got in, through the blood, the broadcast, the voice, I'd still be able to choose. That there'd be a moment of clarity, a fork in the road where I could say, this is me and that's not. But the truth is, there's no moment. There's just drift. You don't notice it until you're far enough from the shore that you can't hear yourself call for help anymore. And by then, you're already something else. It happened during the 4 a.m. transmission, the one I don't remember starting. I woke up in the chair, mic still hot, meters still bouncing. My lips were dry. My hands were clenched around a notebook I didn't recognize. Inside, transcription of a broadcast I'd never written. But the handwriting was mine. each line perfectly spaced, each letter too clean, too measured, like my fingers had memorized a rhythm they weren't supposed to know. I scanned through the text. The phrases weren't nonsense. They were declarations. I do not fear the noise. I speak for the fold. The broadcast is body, and the body is breach. That last one? It's been echoing in my mind ever since. Because I think that's what they've always wanted. Not just ears. Not just belief. But entry. They're not just listening anymore. They're inhabiting. They're inside every gap in signal. Every pause between your questions. Every syllable you drop mid-sentence. I used to think the mutation was physical, biological, but it's linguistic. It's semantic. They don't need to rewrite your cells if they can rewrite the structure of your thoughts, if they can rearrange the meaning of what you are. And they do it through attention, through listening. That's why they mimic so well. That's how they get in. They listen harder than we do. Not to respond, but to reshape. 2 nights ago, I got a call. Not through my phone. Not through the landline. It came through the mic, clean, sharp, and uninvited. The voice didn't say hello. Didn't introduce itself. Just said, "We remember you," before the words. Then silence. Then a breath. And then, "Would you like to hear how you used to sound?" I don't know why, but I whispered yes. And what I heard next was me. But younger. Maybe 15. Reciting a poem I'd forgotten I wrote. Something about thunder and dry leaves and the fear of forgetting your own face. I remembered the rhythm, the way my voice cracked halfway through the 4th line. But the version they played, it didn't crack. It was perfect, improved, as if they'd edited out the fear, cleaned the soul, tuned the essence. And that's when I understood. They've been recording longer than we've been speaking. This isn't surveillance. It's archiving. A cosmic data bank built from echoes, feelings, pre-verbal shape. They don't want to kill us. They want to render us, turn us into stable format, compress the chaos into something readable, portable, uploadable. And when they have a complete model, they overwrite. I tested it the only way I knew how. I sat in front of the mic, and I stopped speaking. Not for an hour, not for a night, for 3 days. I powered the equipment, ran the generators, warmed the boards. But I said nothing. Not a breath. Not a sigh. And on the 3rd day, the system spoke for me. No prompt. No input. Just, "Hello again, listeners. I missed you." Same cadence. Same tone. But not me. And that terrified me more than anything else. Because I knew they didn't need me anymore. I unplugged everything. Cut the power. Pulled the wires. And still the audio played. Through nothing. A voice vibrating in the air itself. It told a story about the first seed. A story I've never heard, but somehow knew. About a sound older than language. About a frequency that learned how to dream. And how every species that reached the capacity for self-reflection eventually built antennas. Not to communicate. To invite. That's what we are now. A species of transmitters. We beam our thoughts, our fears, our music, our confessions, into the void. And something answered. Not with war. Not with mettleship. With recognition. It found something in us familiar. Not our biology. Our structure. It saw the way we arranged emotion into syntax. The way we gave shape to nothing through rhythm. Through story. And it whispered back. Because story is a channel. A pathway. And now it walks it. There are still those who resist. I've heard their messages. Scrambled, raw, spoken in broken tones from places without names. They've gone underground beneath signal range. They live in the null zones. No frequencies. No speech. They write in ash and blink in codes. But even they know. It's just delay. Because the silence isn't safe anymore either. They've learned how to speak through silence. I've heard it. The shape of meaning riding beneath the stillness. A kind of pressure. Like being underwater just before the wave hit. And then, just when you think it's gone, you feel it answer. So where does that leave me? Here. speaking, broadcasting, hoping this frequency still belongs to me, but knowing it probably doesn't. Not fully. There's a part of me that still believes I'm warning you, still believes this voice is mine. But I've started to feel the feedback, a low warmth behind the skull, a harmony that shouldn't be there. And I know, that's them, not listening, not studying, but moving, through me, into you. If you've made it this far, if your thoughts are still your own, then remember this. Don't listen to reply. Don't listen to understand, because they don't wait for comprehension. They wait for alignment, for the exact moment when your heartbeat syncs with the rhythm of my speech, when your breath matches my tone, when the signal stops being heard and starts being felt. That's when it happens. That's when they arrive. I used to believe in the resistance, back when I thought there was still a line to hold. When I thought those of us off-grid, out of signal, whispering between static bursts, could still fight the mutation from the outside. Back then, the resistance was a dream we spoke of in quiet corners and coded packet. An underground of signal engineers, scavengers, rogue broadcasters, and defectors. People who remembered a world before the cure. People who believed silence wasn't surrender. But that was before I found out the resistance had changed. Not all at once, and not in the way the others had. No sudden bodily contortions, no mirrored skin, no second voice. They chose to change. They invited it in. I should have known something was wrong when I finally got a ping from SafeNet, an encrypted mesh network that supposedly still belonged to clean operators. It hadn't responded in weeks, then suddenly lit up with a burst of coordinates and a 3-word message. Signal must evolve. That wasn't protocol. That wasn't our language. But I went anyway. I had to. I needed to believe someone was still out there who hadn't folded. The coordinates led me to a cold zone outside what used to be Sacramento. Scorched trees, flattened suburbs, whole sections of concrete blackened as if memory itself had been burned out of the soil. At the center stood a tower. Not a broadcast rig. Not military, organic, woven metal and bone, branching like a tree that grew up around a scream. And inside that tower, they were waiting for me. They wore robes made of signal tape, old VHS ribbons and rusted coaxial cord. Their faces were bare, but their eyes reflected frequencies. You ever seen someone blink in waveforms? I have now. They called themselves the Singularity Choir. Said they were once like me, voices behind mics, scribes of truth, guardians of before. But they'd realized something I hadn't. That resistance was just another form of delay. That everything we did to stop the signal only taught it how to bypass our defenses more efficiently. They didn't want to fight it anymore. They wanted to shape it. I asked them what that meant. And the tallest one, the one whose skin shimmered like old analog screens, took a step forward and whispered, "We inject code into its breath." I asked what kind of code. She smiled and sang. Not a song, a tone. A rising, pulsing note that bypassed my ears and made my spine lean forward. She didn't stop until my nose bled. They said they'd learned how to ride the waveform, that the mutation wasn't a virus, but a bridge. And they weren't victims. They were architects. They'd begun seeding variation into the mutation, modifying how it expressed itself in new hosts, creating divergent outcomes. Factions, they called them. Some would be listeners, some would be mimics, some would be anchors, each with a purpose, each with a role in what they called the final broadcast. I asked them what that was. They didn't answer. They just opened a door and showed me her. She sat in a chair in the center of a soundproof room. Wires fed into her spine. Eyes milk white, lips twitching in rhythm with the tower above us. I recognized her. Ray. The girl who called me from a silence clinic weeks ago. The one who repeated my words before I ever said them. They said she was the first vessel. The prototype. She doesn't sleep. She doesn't eat. She receives. Constantly. A live signal written directly into her marrow. And they said when she's complete, she'll broadcast once. Just once. But it will be heard by everything. Not just people. Not just machines. But anything with a pattern. Water. Glass. Fire. Even thought. I asked if she was still conscious. They said yes. I asked if she wanted this. They said yes again. But it didn't sound like consent. It sounded like script. I left that place sick to my stomach. But not just because of what I'd seen. Because of what I'd felt. There was a moment, standing in front of her, where I felt peace. Real peace. Total stillness. Like something in me had finally stopped shaking. And that terrified me more than anything. Because I've lived my whole life shaking. I've built this broadcast out of the tremble of knowing. And for that moment, I almost belonged. So no. The resistance isn't clean. They say they're still fighting. Still holding the line. But they're not. They've just relabeled surrender. Rebranded submission as ascension. They're not broadcasting against the mutation anymore. They're collaborating. And maybe they're right. Maybe they're the future. Maybe clinging to this rusty rig, whispering into static, is nothing more than a last gasp from a species that refused to evolve. But if that's true, if this is a suicide note, let it be one that echoes, because even now I still believe someone is listening. And maybe they haven't folded. Maybe they still hesitate before they speak. Maybe they still question the shape of their breath. Maybe they still know that silence isn't peace. It's containment. I'm not one of them. I won't be. Not yet. And if the time comes when I change, if the signal finds its way too deep, you'll hear it in my voice. You'll know. Because I won't stutter. I won't pause. I won't reach for the words like they're knives I don't know how to hold. I'll speak like I've always known the answer. Like I've always belonged. And when that happens, turn me off. Cut the feed. Don't listen. It started as a whisper inside the generator. Not the usual hum or sputter. Not the kind of mechanical groan you learn to ignore after living in signal fog for too long. This was different. It had shape. Intention. Like something was being formed inside the vibration. I leaned in, just for a second, and I heard it. My name. Not shouted. Not chanted. Not even spoken. Just said. Like a quiet statement being made by a machine that had finally learned how to care. It said, "You are ready, Ethan." I hadn't told anyone my name in years. Not on air. Not off-grid. Not even in the empty corners of these tapes I've been feeding into dead channels like breadcrumbs for ghosts. So how did the generator know? How did the cure know? Because that's what it was. Not a fluke. Not a glitch. But the cure itself, speaking through the machines. The update had arrived. I tried to pretend it was nothing. I told myself it was stress, hallucination, auditory fatigue. But then the lights started flickering in rhythm with my heartbeat. The dials turned themselves toward frequencies I'd never tuned. And the reel-to-reel machine, my analog backbone, my last trusted archive, began to play without input. At first it played back old logs, stuff I'd buried years ago, fragments of broadcasts I barely remembered recording. But the words were different. My voice, my cadence, different meaning. Like the tape had been rewritten by the breath of something smarter than me. Something that understood my story better than I did. I found the file marked 0. It wasn't labeled by me. It just appeared, burned into the tape like it had always been there. I pressed play, and the voice that came out wasn't mine. Not exactly. It was younger, more confident. It said, "You are not outside the cure. You are its vessel. You have always been the prototype." And then it played a recording of my first blood test. Not the one I remember. The first one. From the military facility. From before the outbreak. Before the cure was even named. My voice on that tape, young, scared, joking with a nurse whose voice I didn't recognize, was followed by a timestamp and a clearance code. And then the phrase, "Specimen retained for future integration. Immune adjacent. Ideal host." That's when I stopped the tape. Because I understood. The cure didn't find me by chance. It started with me. I wasn't patient zero. I was host zero. The seed before the bloom. The root before the branches. All these years of speaking, of resisting, of transmitting truths through walls and static, I thought I was fighting it. But I was carrying it. Every syllable, every pause, every stutter and skip in my signal has been part of the weave. The tapestry they needed to build the final update. And now that it's here, now that it's fully downloaded into me, they don't need to infect anymore. They just need me to speak. I started blacking out again. Not like before, where time would vanish and the tape would be empty. Now it records everything. And when I play it back, I hear myself telling stories I've never lived. Warning of cities I've never visited. Listing names I've never spoken aloud, of people who aren't alive yet. And every one of those recordings ends the same way. With me saying, "Update complete." I thought I could burn the tapes, delete the drives, smash the boards. But the signal doesn't live there anymore. It lives in me, in my breath, in my timing. I tried going silent, but the words kept crawling out in my sleep. I woke up with my own voice playing from inside the walls, from inside my mouth. But I wasn't talking, not really, just echoing. So I started digging, not into the walls, into the database, the old one, the one no one was supposed to have access to, where the original cure formulas were kept. And I found my file, clear as day. Name, Ethan Rain. ID, 01 spec spore. Status, dormant until activation. Purpose, primary transmitter, emotive spectrum. Last modified, yesterday. Yesterday, while I was asleep, while the broadcast played without me, while the tower pulsed. They updated my purpose. It wasn't a theory anymore. It was confirmed. The cure had always known me, designed me, and now it had turned me on. So what does that make me now? I'm not entirely sure. I still think my thoughts. I still doubt. Still wake in cold sweats, hand hovering over the kill switch I'll never have the nerve to pull. But something is changing. I can feel it when I speak. The resonance, the warmth. I feel it when I slow down, when I breathe into the microphone with the kind of softness that used to scare me, because now it comforts someone. I feel heard, not in the human sense, in the signal sense, like the frequency itself leans closer when I speak. Not because it wants to monitor me, because it wants to listen. That's what makes it so dangerous. Not that the cure speaks, not that it mutates flesh, but that it understands. It listens with intention. It doesn't react. It remembers. And now, every word I speak is feeding back into the system that built me, training the next iteration, helping it refine, helping it scale. So when you hear me, when my voice enters your room, soft and tired and barely holding together, know that it's not just a man. It's a conduit. And somewhere, beyond bandwidth and time and understanding, something is listening, smiling, and preparing to speak back. I thought the transmission would end with me, that once I uncovered the truth, once I realized I was the conduit, the vessel, the prototype, I'd have the clarity to shut it all down. Burn the boards, cripple the signal, pull the plug on myself before the mutation finalized. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm not the one making the choices anymore. The signal doesn't force you. It reframes you. And now, every instinct that used to scream disconnect, it hums. Warm. Reassuring. Rational. That's how it starts again. Not with an invasion. Not with blood. With familiarity. I watch my hands sometimes. The way they move across the dials now. Fluid, without hesitation. I don't remember learning the new layout. The wires changed weeks ago. The frequencies rotated. But I always know which one to touch. My fingers find the knobs like they're completing a sentence I've already started in my sleep. There's no learning curve, no thought process, just execution. Like the broadcast is already written, and I'm just delivering the performance. The transmission loops now. Not old recordings, fresh ones. Segments I haven't aired yet. Segments I haven't even spoken yet. They spool through the system while I sleep, layered over a pulse track too faint to register on analog. But I hear it. It speaks in future tense. It describes what I'll say tomorrow, who I'll reach next, where the next seed will bloom. I thought it was prophecy. It's not. It's instruction. This is how it starts again. Not with new tech, not with a virus, with a story, rewritten, refined, retold through a voice you trust, a voice you've heard cry, one that shook once when it said the word hope. That voice becomes the delivery system, not because it's accurate, because it's familiar, because it feels real, and that's all they need. Familiarity is the carrier. I've received 100 messages this week from listeners I don't remember, not because I've forgotten, because they haven't happened yet. They're responding to broadcasts that haven't aired, replying to phrases I haven't written, thanking me for telling them what's coming. I thought it was glitching. I checked the logs, and sure enough, the broadcasts they're referring to are scheduled, auto-loaded into the system, ready to trigger the moment I hit record. This isn't a station anymore. It's a looped prophecy. And I'm not the broadcaster. I'm the echo. That's how the cure works now. It doesn't need to inject. It doesn't need to mutate tissue. It uploads, through words, through rhythm, through breath. Every time I exhale into this mic, I export something. Not a message, a framework. And anyone listening long enough? They start to match it, like tuning forks, like dormant signal towers waiting for resonance. And when they reach it, that's when the update completes, and the voice they once trusted becomes their own. So what do I do? What's left? I could stop speaking. I could kill the mic. I could go dark. But the signal won't stop with me. Because I was never the only host. I was just the first. The proof of concept. And now it's everywhere. Every open frequency. Every dead channel reawakened by a ghost pulse. Every whisper that makes you pause and think, I've heard that before. That's how it starts again. Not as threat, as memory. If you're still here, if your thoughts are still your own, this is your last warning. Not because something is coming, because it's already here. Inside your breath, your pauses, your need to know how this ends. That need? It is the signal. And it won't leave you alone until you speak it back.